Will 2025 be another roller coaster of a year for Tampa real estate? Tampa was ranked fourth amongst the hottest real estate markets to watch in 2025, but here's the thing. There are two totally different stories unfolding here. High-income buyers are snatching up homes in South Tampa and St. Pete, while local workers are finding it tough to get anything under $500,000 that feels worth it. Oh, and those hurricanes, Milton and Helene, people thought they'd wreck the market, but instead, they've actually revealed Tampa's resilience and set us up for some unexpected changes. Go ahead and buckle up because today we're diving into three major factors that will shape Tampa's real estate market in 2025, and I'm throwing out some predictions that might shock you. Stay tuned. Typically on my channel, we like to jump into the Tampa lifestyle and show you what really makes it an amazing place to call home, but I can't lie to you. Today's video is gonna really pull back the curtain and give you a reality check on what's going on in the Tampa real estate market right now. And take a screenshot because if you're planning on buying or selling a home in Tampa, we want you to reach out to us. We are licensed realtors and we want to be your local real estate team of choice. Now, before we get into the three key questions we should be asking, these current Tampa numbers might surprise you. The median home sales price sits at $406,000, which is incredible considering homes are flying off the market in under 30 days. And despite what you hear about a cooling market, nearly 1 in 5 homes are still selling above the asking price. Now, if you've been following our channel, you know I always like to keep it real with you, so let me break down what this actually means. Remember a few months back when everyone was freaking out because our inventory jumped from 6,000 homes for sale to 11,000 homes? Well, people were saying, oh man, here comes the crash. Well, let me tell you something most people don't realize. We're actually at the same inventory levels we saw back in 2019, which was a healthy, normal market. We're sitting at about 3 to 4 months of inventory, and that's exactly where we want to be. The entire US is actually dealing with a housing shortage of about 6 million homes. That's way more than the 1 million figure you might have heard. And here's what makes it even trickier. About 90% of existing mortgages have under a 5% interest rate, creating what we call a lock-in effect. People just don't want to give up those low rates. Now, let me share something that's really going to impact our local market going forward. Those two hurricanes we just dealt with, Milton and Helene, they actually taught us a lot about our market's resilience. And here's what's fascinating. Instead of destroying our market as some doom and gloomers predicted, it's leading to some positive changes. Firstly, our insurance market is finally stabilizing. Trust me, I know insurance has been a huge concern for my buyers, but we're seeing some good news here. Thanks to new legislation cracking down on fraud, we're actually seeing some insurance companies coming back to Florida. I've even had clients whose premiums dropped 20 to 25% this past year, including my own. But here's what really catches my attention. We're seeing this interesting split in the market between coastal and inland properties. Those hurricanes definitely changed some buyers' mindsets, but you know what? This is creating some interesting opportunities, especially if you know where to look. I'm talking about areas that got overlooked before, but are about to become hotspots. And speaking of changes, here's what's happening with custom new construction homes. These builders aren't just putting up the same old houses anymore. They're adapting to what these storms have taught us with better building codes and smarter designs. This is actually driving up the quality of our housing stock, which is something I don't think enough people are talking about. The real question isn't just about where we are now, it's about where we're headed. And that's exactly what I want to share with you next, because the answers to these three questions we should be asking could completely change how we look at Tampa real estate in 2025. First up, what's happening with our population growth and why it's dramatically affecting real estate. Man, this one is a game changer. So let me share something most people don't realize. Tampa's job growth is running at 2.3 times the national average. And I'm not just talking about any jobs either. We've got major tech companies moving in, our medical sector is booming. And let me tell you about what's happening over at Water Street. They just filled up 90% of their new office tower before it even opened. That tells you everything you need to know about the demand here. And here's something fascinating about who's buying. Gen Z buyers are actually outpacing millennials right now. But here's the real kicker. 75% of these Gen Z purchases are being financed by their baby boomer parents. I'm seeing this interesting setup where parents retain ownership while the kids handle the monthly costs like HOA fees and taxes. Just a smart way to avoid paying rent or having an adult or those adult kids living at home. And here's what's really interesting. We're seeing this massive influx of remote workers choosing Tampa. I was just showing homes to a family from Denver last week. And not only were they trying to trade in their snowshoes for flip-flops, but they're moving here and keeping their same salaries, taking advantage of our no state income tax. That's completely changing our market dynamics. And FYI, we just crossed over 3 million people in our metro area, making us the second largest metro in Florida. let that go ahead and sink in for a bit. Now for that second question, what's happening with our supply of homes? This is where things get really fascinating. Since a ton of folks are staying put and holding on to their low interest rates, new home builders are providing the inventory our market needs. We've got new home builders like Taylor Morrison coming in hot with 7 new communities across Hillsborough, Pasco, and Manatee counties in 2025. And we're talking about 3,000 new homes, folks, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But here's the kicker. They're not building where everyone else is. They're focusing on areas like Plant City, Apollo Beach, and Hudson. To be fair, these areas haven't seen this kind of development before, but there's a good reason why they're moving here now. Tampa's downtown is another great example. Have you driven by Water Street lately? That $3.5 billion development is completely transforming things. Then you've got Gasworks adding 5,000 residential units. And get this, over 300 of those will be affordable housing. That's the largest private investment in affordable housing in Tampa's history. And for that third question, let's talk about affordability, because this is what keeps me up at night. We're looking at some interesting changes coming in 2025. Interest rates, the Fed's signaling that some cuts are coming, but when? Insurance rates, well, finally stabilizing thanks to new legislation, but here's a big one. Property taxes have jumped nearly 60% since 2019, largely due to price increases. That's something you've got to factor into your monthly payments. And you know what's wild about all of this? These 3 factors are creating what I call a perfect storm of opportunity, but not in the way you might think. Let me show you exactly what I mean. As someone who shows homes across Tampa Bay every single day and studies the market, I'm seeing some wild differences between price points. So let me go ahead and break that down for you. Let's start with our entry-level market, homes under $400,000. Folks, this is where things are getting tough for buyers, but here's what's really interesting. We're seeing some new opportunities pop up that most people don't know about yet. Take Palm Wind in Hudson, for example. They're starting homes in the low 300,000s, and get this, no CDD fees. That's huge for monthly payment. Or look at what's happening in Apollo Beach with Indigo Creek. Taylor Morrison's building these amazing communities with resort-style amenities starting in the high 300s. To be fair, you're driving a bit further out, but you're getting so much more house for your money. And let's say you want to be in the city. If you're good with rolling up your sleeves and putting some sweat equity in those older homes, Tampa is loaded with older homes that need some love, and with patience, you can still find some diamonds in the rough. Now let's talk about that mid-range market from the $400,000 to $800,000 sweet spot. This is where I'm seeing some fascinating things happen, especially in areas like Carrollwood. You know what's funny? A few months back, everyone was saying, oh, these sellers are never going to come down on price. Well, let me tell you what's actually happening. We're seeing sellers finally getting realistic with their pricing. Not a crash, mind you, but they're coming back down to earth and pricing homes where they should have been. And I'm saying this from experience. I hear it all the time from comment section that I'm a realtor, so it's easy to tell someone to buy or sell a home. Well, it's not that simple. I always say it boils down to what is right for that specific person. And there's a ton of variables that go into that. I personally just sold my home and purchased a new one that I'm in the works of renovating. And this is not a fix and flip. This is my personal home that my family will live in. So it's all coming from a very real place. Now in South Tampa, that's a whole different ballgame. You used to be able to get a decent fixer-upper there for under $600,000. Now, those same properties are getting multiple offers, especially if they're outside flood zones. I actually had a client last week who, well, let me go ahead and save that story for what I'm gonna tell you in a bit about the luxury market. And speaking of luxury, let me share something that's really going to surprise you about our 800,000 plus market. We're not just talking about Bayshore Boulevard anymore. Have you seen what's happening downtown? The Pendry's coming in with condos starting at $1.7 million, and they're selling fast. Even the Ritz-Carlton second tower is already 60% sold. But here's what's really catching my attention. We're seeing this massive shift in what luxury buyers want. They're not just looking for big houses anymore. They want amenities, walkability, that lock and leave lifestyle. And with all these new developments coming up, they're getting exactly that. Now let me tell you why this matters, even if you're not in the luxury market. What I'm seeing coming in 2025 is what I called a perfect storm, and not necessarily in a good way. Let me explain. First up, and I'm seeing this every single day with my team, there's this huge gap forming between what sellers think their home is worth and what the market's actually willing to pay. Let me give you a real example. Just last week, one of my agents, Denise, bought an offer to a listing agent for a home that was clearly overpriced. We're talking about $500,000 listing that honestly should have been about $460,000. And you know what? That seller wouldn't budge. I told Denise, well, they're a lucky winner. They get to keep their house. But here's what really concerns me for 2025. We're seeing this condition intolerance from buyers that's absolutely wild. Think about it. People would rather stay in their $4,000 a month rental than pay a $4,000 a month mortgage for a place that needs work. And man, let me tell you why this is such a big deal. Here's something most people aren't talking about yet. With all this talk about new tariffs and immigration enforcement, we might be looking at some serious labor shortages in construction. I'm talking about roofing, framing, painting, landscaping, all the things you need to fix up these older homes. To be fair, if you don't think stricter immigration policies are going to impact housing costs, you might be kidding yourself. But regardless of what you believe on the politics side of things, the results are facts. And let me share something else that keeps me up at night. Remember those insurance changes Ryan on my podcast talked about? Well, we're seeing insurance companies getting way more strict about inspections. It's not just about having a general contractor look at the house anymore. Now they want specialized roofers, separate wind mitigation reports, the whole 9 yards. But here's what's really making this a perfect storm. All of these factors are hitting at once. You've got sellers who won't budge on price, buyers who won't touch anything that needs work, potentially rising construction costs and stricter insurance requirements. Put that together, and what do you get? Homes sitting on the market longer than they have in the past few years. But here's something historical that might make you feel better. The housing market has actually increased 9 of the last 11 presidential elections. And with rates predicted to drop gingerly into the low 6s and possibly even 5s, we might see buyers being able to buy down into the 4% range. That 4 to 5% handle, that's the magic number where we typically see the market really starting to move. So this actually creates some incredible opportunities if you know where to look. While some people are seeing problems, I'm seeing incredible opportunities coming in 2025. First, and this is something I'm already seeing with my clients, these new developments are completely changing the game for certain areas. Take Water Street, Tampa, for example. Man, if you haven't driven through there lately, you wouldn't even recognize it. But here's what's really interesting. It's not just about Water Street itself. I'm seeing properties in the surrounding areas starting to catch fire, and let me tell you exactly why. Think about it. You've got gasworks connecting Ybor to the Channel District, the Riverwalk extension coming through, and all these new restaurants and shops popping up. Now, what do you think it's gonna happen to the property values in Tampa Heights and the surrounding areas? I actually had clients buy in Tampa Heights 2 years ago, and their property has already appreciated more than anywhere else in Tampa. But here's something most people aren't paying attention to yet. These new Taylor Morrison communities coming in, they're not just building houses, they're building in areas that are about to explode. I'm talking about Plant City, Apollo Beach, and not to mention one of the newest communities that I feel could have the biggest impacts in 2025, Two Rivers and Zephyr Hills. To be fair, these weren't always the hottest areas, but with all the infrastructure improvements coming, that could change. Now let me share something really exciting about investment opportunities. Remember those hurricane-affected areas I mentioned earlier? Well, here's what's fascinating. Historically, after major storms, affected areas actually take a hit for about 7 months or so following the storms. Then they appreciate over the next 3 to 5 years, more than if a storm had never happened. This is mostly due to newer, better building structures taking the place of older homes that were damaged. That's based on real data from previous storms. And for those of you thinking about new construction, man, this is where it gets good. These builders are offering some serious incentives right now. I'm talking about rate buydowns, closing cost assistance, all kinds of things to help with affordability. But here's the kicker. If interest rates start to drop like they are predicting and demand increases for these homes, watch how fast these incentives disappear. Let me give you one more insider tip that most people don't realize. You know all those luxury condos going up downtown? Well, they're actually creating opportunities in the surrounding areas. Restaurants, shops, services, they all follow the luxury developments from what we're seeing locally. I've seen this pattern play out in cities all over Florida and Tampa. It's probably next up. But here's what really matters, timing. And that's exactly what I want to share with you next. So if you're thinking about buying or selling, what should you do in 2025? Let's start with buyers. Listen, I've helped hundreds of families buy homes in Tampa, and here's what I'm telling my clients right now. To begin with, timing. Look, we know interest rates are probably gonna drop in 2025, but here's what's interesting. Once those rates drop, you're gonna see a flood of buyers that are on the sideline jump back into the market. Right now, you've actually got some leverage with sellers that you might not have 6 months from now. And let me share something about location strategy that most people don't realize. You know all those new developments I mentioned? Well, you don't necessarily need to buy in them to benefit from them. I'm seeing smart buyers looking at existing neighborhoods that are just 5 to 10 minutes away from these newer developments. You get appreciation without paying those premium prices. Now, here's something crucial about insurance, and man, this is so important. Before you fall in love with any house, especially if it's near water, get an insurance quote. I can't tell you how many deals I've seen fall apart because buyers wait until the last minute to check insurance costs. And here's a pro tip. If you're not in a flood zone, but possibly near one, flood insurance might only cost you about $700 a year. And that's absolutely worth it for the peace of mind. For sellers, let me be really straight with you. The market in 2025 is gonna be all about pricing strategy. Remember that story I told you about the $500,000 listing? Don't be that seller. Right now, you've got to price your home where the market is, not where you wish it was. I'm seeing homes that are priced right still selling in under 30 days. But here's what really matters. Condition is becoming more important than ever. I'm talking about these mortgage companies wanting specialized inspections now. If you're thinking about selling, you might want to get ahead of this. Get your roof inspected by a licensed roofer. Get a wind mitigation report. Do it all before you list. Trust me, it'll make your life so much easier when you go to sell. And let me give you one more piece of advice that most agents won't tell you. If you're thinking about selling in 2025, don't wait until spring if you're ready right now. Everyone lists in spring, you know. When I see some of the best results, right on the fringe in the slightly off months because there's lower competition. You've got all those people moving to Florida to escape the winter, and inventory is typically lower early on, and well, in the summer, get in before August when school starts. So what do I really think about Tampa's real estate market in 2025? You know, as a Tampa native who's watched the city grow and change, I've never been more excited about where we're headed. Look, we've got some challenges ahead, no question about it. That gap between seller expectations and market reality isn't going away overnight. Those insurance and inspection requirements are getting stricter, and yes, we're dealing with affordability issues that we need to work through. But here's what really matters. Tampa's still growing faster than almost any other major city in the country. We're not just talking about random growth either. We've got major companies moving here, billions in new development, and opportunities that you just can't find in other markets. Whether your team won or lost in the election, we've got certainty now about who's gonna be in charge, and that's gonna bring some stability back to the market. And remember what I always say, people will always need to buy and sell because of the big Ds: diamonds, divorce, death, disparity, and diapers. Now, if you're thinking about making a move in 2025, here's what I want you to do. First, save our contact info. It's right there on the screen. My team and I eat, breathe, and sleep Tampa real estate, and we love to help you find your perfect home, just like we've helped hundreds of other families. And hey, if you found value in this video, do me a quick favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're constantly putting out new content to help you navigate Tampa's real estate market. Remember, in real estate, timing isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about making the right moves with the right information. Let's make 2025 your year. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video. Woo!